What's going on, guys? Mr. Clasher here. Welcome back to another Clash Royale video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about top cheap phones for playing Clash Royale. Now, these phones, I'm going to give a list of 7 phones, and these phones are pretty cheap that you can play pretty much any Clash of Clans / Clash Royale, but this is going to be about Clash Royale, and these are the cheap phones that I'm going to talk about. So let's get down to the countdown. So the first phone coming in is the OnePlus X from Android. Now, this phone doesn't have the best specs around the table like the iPhone 6 or the latest Android phones, but it's got a 5-inch display. It's a 1920 by 1080 display, so that's pretty good. It's got a 13 megapixel camera that can record in 1080p. It's got 3 gigabytes of RAM, and it's got decent battery life as well. It was released on November of 2015. It weighs about 138 to 160 grams, and its thickness is only 6.9 millimeters thickness. So that's not too bad. It's pretty slick phone. It's not super fat, and it's got a 16 gigabyte storage as well. And it's got a micro SD slide. Now, this phone is under 200 pounds. It's under about 250, 260 US dollars. So if you guys don't have a cheap phone, I definitely would recommend going with the OnePlus X. It's under 200 pounds. You can find it anywhere on the market. So that is the first phone, the OnePlus X. Coming in with the second phone, this is from Sony, and it's called the Sony Xperia M4 Aqua phone. Now, this phone is pretty similar to the OnePlus X I just talked about. It's got a 5-inch display. Obviously, it's touch. It's a 720p screen instead of the 1080 like it was on the OnePlus X. It's got a 13 megapixel camera that records in 1080p, 2 gigabytes of RAM. Its weight is 136 grams, and its thickness is 7.3 millimeters thick, and it was released on June of 2015. It's got 8 gigabytes of storage, and it's got a micro SD card slot. Now, this phone is also under 200 pounds, again, 250, 260 US dollars. So if you guys like Sony phones, I would definitely recommend the Sony Xperia M4 Aqua. You know, if you don't have a phone, pick it up if you like Sony phones. Anyway, that was coming in with the second spot with the Sony Xperia M4 Aqua. Coming with the third phone is called the Moto G. Now, this phone is actually pretty close to the two I've listed before. It's got a 4.5-inch display. It's a 720p screen. Now, it's got a 5 megapixel camera that records a 720p. It's got 1 gigabyte of RAM, and it has 8 to 16 gigabyte of storage. No card slide. It was released of 2013 of November. So this Moto G phone, guys, I mean, it's under the budget. You can definitely get it for a pretty low price. And it's got actually a quad-core processor as well. Now, it can do the basic multitasking. It can do high-end multitasking. But if you're looking for a pretty cheap phone, you know, go settle down with Moto G. With the fourth phone is from Acer. It is called the Acer Liquid JS. Now, this phone is pretty similar to the other ones as well, but it's actually got some higher specs than some of the ones I just listed. So it's got a 5-inch 720p display. It's got a 13 megapixel camera that is 1080p. It's got 2 gigabytes of RAM. It's got 16 gigabyte storage, micro SD card slot. It was released of December 2014. It only weighs 116 grams, and it's 7.8 millimeter thick. So this phone is not too bad. It's actually a pretty good budget phone as well. And this is from Acer, and they do have pretty good products. For the most part, they have, you know, they make laptops, and this phone is definitely in your budget as well. You can probably pick it up under 200 pounds as well, so anywhere in the market. So this was the Acer Liquid JS. Coming in with the fifth phone, it's the Sony Xperia T3. Now, it is not as good as the Xperia M4. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles as the Xperia M4 Aqua phone, but it's got some pretty decent specs I'm going to get down to in just a second. So it's got a 5.3-inch display, 1280 by 720, so pretty standard. It's got an 8 megapixel camera that can record in 1080p. It's got 1 gigabyte of RAM, and it's got 8 gigabyte of storage with a micro SD card slot. It was released of July 2014. It weighs only 148 grams, and it's only 7 millimeters thick. So if you guys want a Sony phone for about $130 to $180, just depends where you buy it, I would definitely check out the Sony Xperia T3. Coming in at the 6th place is the Motorola Moto E. Now, this phone is not as good as the Moto G, top of the line one, but you know what? It's a friendly budget. It's only less than $100. You can pick it up from Amazon or any other market. And it's a 4.3-inch display. It's a 960 by 540 display. It's got a 5 megapixel camera that records in 480p. It's only got 1 gigabyte of RAM. It's got 4 gigabyte of storage, micro SD card slot. It only weighs 142 grams. but its thickness is 12.3 millimeters thick, and it was released of May 2014. Now again, this phone doesn't have really that many high specs, but it can play Clash Royale, and guys, it's only under $100. You can pick it up pretty much from anywhere. $100, that is pretty cheap for a phone. So this phone was the Motorola Moto E. Coming in the last spot is the Samsung Galaxy J3 phone. Now it's got a 5.0 inch display screen, 1280 by 720, not too shabby. It's got an 8 megapixel 1080p camera. It's got a 1.5 gigabytes of RAM. It's got 8 to 16 gigabytes of storage. It's got a micro SD card slot. It was released of January 2016. So this phone isn't too bad. It only weighs 138 grams, 7.9 millimeters thick. Now this phone can be bought on Amazon or any other market for around less than $150. You can find it, so it's a pretty good deal. And that was coming in with the Samsung Galaxy J3. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Again, I listed 7 phones that are under $200, and they're budget-friendly phones that can play pretty much any game, or at least Clash Royale, Clash of Clans, but especially Clash Royale. So you guys can tell me in the comment section below what you guys thought about the phones. Again, they were in the best specs and everything, but for $100 to $200 to get a phone just to play games like Clash Royale, I really think it's a pretty good deal. And not every single phone can actually play Clash Royale, just to be honest. Telling you guys, I've had Clash of Clans on my really old phone, iPhone, and it could barely play that. So I definitely recommend picking up an iPhone, or not an iPhone, a cheap phone. But if you don't have $300-$400, go with like the $150-$200 mark. You're gonna get a decent phone, and you're gonna like and play different games. So anyway, tell me in the comment section below, guys, what kind of phone you are using to play Clash Royale or any Supercell game, but especially Clash Royale. So I really hope you guys did enjoy the video. If we could smash 50 likes, that would be amazing. And again, this was the list of the cheap phones, budget friendly. And as always, I'll see you all on my next video.